Hello there, and welcome to the D&AD Insights Entertainment panel. My name is Simone Sebastian. I'm Client Services Director of Dazed Studio, which is part of the Dazed Media Group, headquartered in London. And today I'll be speaking to the judges of the D&AD Entertainment category and gaming categories, as well as radio and audio categories, to really dig into their picks of the most exciting work from this year in gaming, branded entertainment, events, and more. We're also going to carve out some time to discuss key trends in a year that has seen so much happen, and especially seen monumental shifts in streaming, VOD, gaming, listening habits, all kinds of stuff. So there's a lot for us to go into. But first, please allow me to introduce our panel of judges. First up, we have Danny Robinson, Chief Creative Officer of the Martin Agency. Good to have you, Danny. Also joining us is Rosh Singh, Managing Director of Unit 9. Hi, Rosh, how are you doing? We also have Soraya Sob, Head of Creative Management at Fnatic. Hi, Soraya. And Nadia Loskott, who is Executive Creative Director of AMV BBDO. And rounding up the panel is Alexander Kalchev, Chief Creative Officer of DDB Paris. Hey, Alexander, how are you doing? Great. So let's jump straight into it, but maybe if you'd indulge me in a little bit of time travel before we start to speak to the judges. I want us to sort of all think about an incredibly challenging moment in our recent history, March of 2020. This was the month that the World Health Organization officially classified COVID-19 as a pandemic. Nations around the world were grappling with whether to go into full lockdown. Travel bans were starting to be put into place, but for a lot of sports-loving Americans, there was a particular moment in that month that will go down in history, and it's when the NBA officially shut on March 11th, 2020. Danny Robinson, do you remember that moment, and how does it connect to your pick?
This Michelob ULTRA Courtside was a piece that I've seen in a couple of shows. I chose it as one of my favorite things for a bunch of reasons. I try not to be biased. I'm a sports fan, so I tried to make sure I left my bias at the door and that I wasn't choosing it because I love sports and I was connected to it. And it was good to see that other people who weren't necessarily fans felt the same. It was an interesting. We saw so many pieces of work that started with COVID being a problem, which, okay, we expect to see that in the work this year because a lot of ideas started with that as a core. And knowing that there was something about this idea that it was, and it was rooted in the problem that fans couldn't go to games. So it was rooted in COVID, but it was, to me, unlike a lot of work, it felt celebratory. It was, we have a problem, but we're going to create an idea that's going to allow people to continue to experience a thing that they love in spite of COVID, not because of COVID.
This is the last night of NBA games.
The league will use this hiatus to determine the next steps.
We play games without the fans?
Yeah.
No, it's impossible. I ain't playing.
And that courtside idea used tech. I love that it was a little sloppy and messy. It wasn't beautiful in the way it looked, but I know the technology behind it and the execution. And someone on our jury was there, and was part of the experience and brought a little bit more life to it. Explained that if you were part of this experience, you actually felt like you were at the game, which, if you're just a viewer, you don't know. There was a whole lot about it that was just felt perfect for the moment. And it turned, I think, what could have been a really sad basketball season for the fans and the players into one that felt a little bit normal-ish.
It's pretty crazy, man. You can literally talk to your people in your section.
I'm brother right here. I hear I'm sitting next to Shaq. What's up, Prince?
A little bit of normality was what we were all kind of craving at that time. And I'm just looking at my notes, I'm seeing that it actually led to some innovations within Microsoft Teams. So Microsoft was the official tech partner of the NBA, and then seeing what was kind of coming together with the bubble and the incorporation of these screens, it kind of led to the development of together mode in teams, so that you can bring together multiple video feeds into the same location and then have various sort of backgrounds, and for us to not just be in our little boxes or to have our sort of actual real life spaces as a background, we could kind of teleport into whatever space. And in your example, into the NBA, into a game. And then with some of what Microsoft was doing last year, it was about being able to be transported elsewhere, which is a theme I think that will come up in quite a few of the picks that we're going to talk through today. But were there anything else that other sort of key maybe macro trends that you were seeing from last year that you feel this piece really bolsters or really was kind of a shining beacon of?
So the idea that maybe that brands can start to look at sponsorships with a little bit more depth, with some more meaning. That for me, the brand, it's a beer brand. It's about sports. You drink beer at games. You drink beer watching games. It felt like a real integration. I think they created special cameras for it to work as well. So the idea that it doesn't take years to put together a collaboration like this with new technology. If you are motivated, I think maybe it'll be a lesson to be learned the next time someone wants to do something and say, well, you can do this quickly if you want to, because there's proof of that.
Exactly, there's proof of that. That feels like a good segue for us to maybe chat to Rosh Singh to find out what Rosh's pick from last year is. With your role at Unit 9, you're very close to a lot of exciting technological innovation, digital acceleration from last year. What's your pick?
So my pick would be the Samsung Cyberpunk collaboration for the launch of the Cyberpunk game. And when you are lucky enough to judge something like the D&AD, you get approached with so much incredible, gut-punching, heart-wrenching, like meaningful work that just draws a lot of debate out of the jury and kind of moves conversation lots of different ways. And it becomes quite easy to somewhat overlook simply brilliant work that is just well executed. And if we look at the criteria for D&AD, it's inspiring, is it great execution, is it fit for purpose? And I think if you look at the Samsung activation, it was all three of those things, right? So it was a virtual experience that was core to the community of gamers at a time when gaming was in every single headline. Everybody was trying to activate within the gaming space, and we saw a lot of entries within the gaming categories which felt like brands shoehorning themselves into the gaming community. And this actually felt like a beautiful articulation of how to use gaming as a platform to create a game mechanic on top of a game in a virtual experience that tied the physical to the digital together in a way that actually we didn't talk about it too much, because I think unanimously we all just thought it was a brilliant piece of work. And it was incredibly fit for purpose. The production value was incredible. I think Danny made this point earlier, like when you do something for one brand, it's hard. When you've got two brands in there, it's even harder to get a result like this at the level of quality, the hardware, the integration of the game and mechanics, the real-time integration with all of the different social media networks that they utilize, the way the community was built into the experience. These things are hard, and this was almost flawless, really, in its execution. And I have a personal metric that I go to, which is when I look at a piece of work, and does it make me feel jealous? Do I see it and go, I really wish I'd done that? And that was a piece of work where instantly I was like, damn it, if only I'd got that brief, if only I had the ability to work on that. So for me, it is just a genuinely all around great piece of work.
It is again another example of the might of marketeers coming together to do something massive and to be able to turn it around and have it be executed to perfection is quite a feat, and all in the middle of a global pandemic. So Are there other pieces, other gaming experiences that make you feel jealous and make you think, damn, I wish we'd made that?
There's a lot of work in the world that makes me feel jealous, but that's what keeps us going, right? I think, that there is a litmus test for pieces of work like this, where you can just really see the craft that went into it. You can see that they've really sat down, they've thought about every single detail, and they've made an experience end to end. And you can tell that this wasn't just a good case study video. You could tell they thought about how the gaming mechanics went into, people cracking the safe. So for me, it's less about, is the piece of work amazing? Like, for me, I'm coming from a production perspective, everything is like, is the attention to detail incredible? Have they looked at every single tiny thing and focused on it? And for me, that's what makes great work stand out head and shoulders.
Great. Soraya, I know that you and Rosh may have had the same pick, and then you sort of fought almost to the death and agreed who would talk about which piece of work, which is the one that you are wanting to share with us today.
Yeah, I can proudly say that we fought very gracefully to the death, but I've chosen the Uncensored Library, which, to be honest, we picked the same two pieces of works because they're both exceptional. They were absolutely stand out, and this was another one where straight up there was straight consensus. The whole judging panel knew that it was really special. It was so brilliantly integrated into the game in a way that was really authentic to the time and really really conscious of the audience and the community, and I think that's what spoke to it. One thing that we didn't even talk about until really late in the discussions was the fact that there was a brand integrated in it. It was so beautifully done that you almost didn't feel like there was a brand associated with it, and that is really the mark of great quality work. And similar to what's been said before, there was so much purpose-led work in this year's shortlist that, I'll be honest, one of the pieces brought me to tears. I felt really moved by them. So it was quite hard to separate what work was really powerful on its own merit and what work actually ticked all the boxes for D&AD, and we had to get quite tough. With the Uncensored Library, the fact that they used Minecraft and they were talking to a young audience was, yes, it was obvious, but also it was really clever. It was the right title. If you're talking to a young audience, you've got 15 to 5-year-olds who are in Minecraft, and I think they've sold something like 22 million copies. It's the biggest selling game since Tetris. So they've gone straight for the biggest title, but they did it seamlessly. They did in a way that was really accessible, and the message was powerful. The message was about a time when how do we reduce the noise around young people so that they're not falsely influenced by government, by social media, by what they see in the news, what they see in their news feeds, in a way that's really honest. And I thought that this was just absolutely brilliantly executed.
How did the conversations go when you're reviewing the work as a judging panel, and do they get contentious? Do they get emotional? Talk us through the process for those of us who haven't haven't been able to kind of be a part of it.
I don't think they were emotional, but I think we were really honest, and we all came from such a broad range of backgrounds that we all approached it from a really different perspective. I think the first thing we went into was branded game design, largely because we had a lot of people that worked in that area and they're really curious and really looking for that work. So that was our first kickoff point, because that's everyone's frame of reference. But as we started to discuss things really openly, the conversations became really, really powerful. We were able to talk through challenges. We were able to sway people's opinions without ego getting in the way, without stubbornness. We were really, there was one work that I particularly wasn't a fan of, and a couple others weren't, which ended up getting, quite highly awarded. And it's because of the colleagues that I had on the panel that swayed me and made me see the craft and the brilliance and the time and the elements of execution, which were really fantastic and deserved award. So I think we were, in that way, a really, really great panel. That's such a hard thing to do, right? To sway someone's opinion when they feel like they've already made a commitment and said, no, I don't want this. No emotion, thankfully, no tears.
Thank you for that. Nadia Loscott, Executive Creative Director at AMV BBDO. Are you ready to share your pick from the last year?
Yeah, mine from the year that went down a storm in our jury is the Xbox work, The Birth of Gaming Tourism. What was brilliant about the idea was that it just strategically reframed something that was hiding in plain sight. And gaming is always so focused on the experience of action and skill, and the reframe of seeing gaming as an experience to just be there and look at the beauty of the worlds that have been created in themselves as almost like a mindful experience, as a travel experience, feels like it's one of those things where you go, of course you should experience gaming in that way, but actually to focus in on that and make it a whole idea in itself, with collaborating with rough guides, travel guides, and making sure that you see all the little hotspots not to miss, and all of those details that just make it overall such an exciting piece of work. And I think that everyone was just so inspired by it in its entirety of that refresh and reframe of thinking.
I mean, a big piece that we saw last year, obviously, is just how gaming really allowed for us to escape from the realities of the everyday. But then perhaps it's time for us to check in with Alexander Kalchev to see what your pick from last year was and bring that into the wider discussion.
Yeah, my pick was this really interesting project for Xbox, which was called Walking in Steve's Dreams. Now, when you're judging radio and audio, you don't have the fireworks of the visuals and the craft, and it's much harder in a way to do something that is immersive and entertaining. And what I found really brilliant about this idea was that basically they did a lucid dreaming experiment with this guy called Steve Saylor, who's a blind gamer and who's basically fighting for accessibility in the gaming world. And they recorded his dreams, and then they created this really beautiful, immersive, binaural sort of experience where you had to close your eyes and you were walking in his dreams. You were sort of seeing what he sees when he dreams.
I'm with my fire team, and this creature comes out of nowhere.
Whoa, easy, big guy.
But we stand our ground.
And beyond the fact that it was a pretty trippy idea, which I found really, really interesting and experimental, there was something very, very elegant about the way it was empowering without being on the nose. It felt very, very exciting and very powerful without, saying, oh, here's a blind gamer. And I think it's a very interesting approach. So it was a brilliant piece that everyone loved, that went quite far. I think it was my standout piece for this year.
Thank you so much, Alexander. I mean, I think now that we've gone through we've thrown all of the picks into the atmosphere, and we can now kind of look at all of them as a whole. And it feels like there are some interesting themes. Obviously, innovation is a key one, but I think innovation is sort of built into pretty much everything that we do on this panel. But then there's also these ideas of accessibility and escapism. I'd love to sort of dig into that a little bit, how some of these technologies are just really allowing all people, regardless of accessibility, a chance to be a part of an experience together. I'll open it up to the floor.
The idea I picked wasn't even my favorite idea, right? But I picked it for a bunch of reasons. It's interesting that accessibility in that case, there were dogs sitting in the stadium during the games because of this technology, and anyone who could scan the bottle and get access could participate. And it seems to me that if I can imagine that they weren't thinking, well, let's make this accessible to anyone and anybody and anywhere. But it turns out this idea allowed people to be a lot of people to be in one place where an event was happening, where nobody was actually at the event, where everyone at the event was somewhere else, where anything could participate, which is I'm guessing not at the core of their thinking when they started this idea. But if you think about what Microsoft Teams is doing and what we've had to do because of the previous year, that's what we've been doing. So in essence, they made a giant Zoom call and turned it into sport and entertainment, which is why for me at its core, it's just such a basic, we're already doing this. Let's figure out a way to do it on a massive scale, tied to a brand, tied to a property or two, that then other people could experience. Because I'm watching the game, seeing all of those people watch a game. It was a bit of an inception kind of moment for me. And one of the reasons I picked it is because it really happened, right? I'm not saying the other work didn't happen, but I know people who saw this, and I love a lot of the work we do, and it hurts me that a lot of the great work out in the world, my best friends have never heard of. So I love that there was a thing that was entered that I would say craft wasn't the greatest, but execution and intent and all the other stuff was wonderful, and it worked in the real world. So not only was it accessible to people who participated, but it was accessible to someone's mother and grandmother and cousin, and things we say, did you see X? In our world, we talk to each other and we've all seen it, and then we go outside of our bubble. No pun intended. We go outside of our bubble and ask people, and they haven't seen these wonderful things. So, I guess that's the definition of accessible for me, right?
Accessibility was driving a lot of the work in the gaming category, but in a different way. So it was a response to a lack of accessibility to the world that everyone had. And it felt like it was a very big driving force for a lot of the entries in the gaming category, which was, as a blunt response to what was going on, let's just recreate what we were doing or what we would have done in the real world, but let's do it in Minecraft or let's do it in Animal Crossing. And that's a good idea once or twice, and then you kind of get, you get very familiar with it very quickly. And the work that we were talking about, the Uncensored Library, was so brilliant because actually it turned that on its head. And this was a perennial problem. It wasn't COVID accessibility, it was genuine accessibility that people have to important pieces of work, and it was doing something that you couldn't do in the real world on a gaming platform, not something that would have normally been done in the real world on a gaming platform. And that felt like a very important differentiator, because if any of that work that was a COVID kind of response piece of work was entered a year later, I don't think it would have even made the shortlist. However, the Uncensored Library would make the shortlist every single year because it's just a genuinely good idea that couldn't have been executed in many other mediums.
The thing about gaming, which just, I think, blew up in the last 12 months was social accessibility. You had people who couldn't experience these things for social mobility reasons, who couldn't, they might not have been able to afford a ticket to the NBA, and now all of a sudden they were able to experience it in a different way. There's a whole different level of accessibility which gaming provides, which I think means that the work can be more creative, more interesting, and more powerful for a far larger audience than other forms of media. So I would echo everything that Danny and Rosh have said. We had such an amazing list of entries for those reasons.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. The Xbox birth of gaming tourism ideas all based around exactly the same thing of accessibility and allowing you to travel to a whole different world and experience the beauty on a magnificence of these incredible worlds that people have spent years and years building. It feels like you have access to the most amazing things, and the discovery of that becomes even bigger during a year that we've just been through. So I think that although the Xbox idea started out before COVID, I think that it almost became even stronger during it, because people are stuck in their space. People are going through a hell of a lot. Everyone, it's same storm, different boat for everybody, but you're allowed to then dive into an experience and escape into a world that you can keep yourself and your mind busy with. And I think that that's incredibly powerful.
Alexander, I have a question around obviously the podcasting world and just audio platforms in general have been turbocharged over the past few years. I'm thinking of Apple and Facebook's recent announcements. They're dipping of their toe into the space. What do you see is potentially coming for us in the kind of audio, podcast, and radio world with these new giants officially kind of sharing their interest in audio?
I think there's just going to be even more interesting long form storytelling. I think that there's for example, there's a brilliant series which I think you can watch on Apple TV called Calls. I don't know whether you've seen it, which is basically a podcast that's visualized and with a very beautiful data visualization, and basically you're watching audio on screen, and it's really interesting and very experimental sort of approach. So I think that radio has always been a very, very fascinating medium. If we go back to War of the Worlds and Orson Welles, it's had the power to entice us and to take us to places where we've never been before, and there's something very pure about the experience, I think. So what I think would be really interesting is to see, and I think we're going to see more long form content, more series, showrunners, creators that are going to, branch out and do long form audio experiments, because it's super simple and super hard at the same time, and there's something quite interesting about this mix.
And Alexander has maybe helped us to segue into maybe a bit of a let's look into the future space. So perhaps it's your one key takeaway from this year, from the work that you have judged, and then your prediction for the year or years ahead. Who wants to start?
I'll do it. I love making predictions. Okay. So I'd say the one takeaway is, I think, and I touched on it before, this has been a year of brands really using gaming as a platform. So basically brands hijacking games to create a brand message. I don't think that will last very long. I think next year will be the beginning of a new era where brands look to create their own worlds. They'll look to world build a brand-centric metaverse, if you want, that will become the hub that everything feeds into. It'll be the sum part of every single point of brand experience will live in a gamified metaverse arena. So that it won't be a brand activating on Minecraft or an Animal Crossing. It'll be a brand creating their own platform that then potentially feeds into these other platforms, but has its own universe that they've built.
Yeah, considering the power of the Unreal Engine, and considering how many amazing experimental work is coming out. I think that I absolutely agree with you. I think that there's going to be more and more tailor-made worlds. It's not that expensive anymore. It's not that labor intensive. So I think we can have some. We're going to see some beautiful experiments in that space.
I'm happy to go next. I think this year we saw a lot of, as Rosh said, just plain old branding, smacking a logo on Animal Crossing, and hey, we're in esports and gaming now. I think we've also seen a lot of brands find a bit of confidence with esports and gaming, because a lot of the people making these decisions might not be gaming themselves. What we might see is, now that they've dipped their toe in, they've got a little bit of confidence, they're going to step further in, and they're going to be more ambitious and more confident in how much they spend and where they spend it. So I think we might see a shift where there is a lot more happening in gaming, and maybe that becomes more of a focus for some brands, that actually this could be the place where I can communicate with my audience or my target audience a lot more. I think we might also see a bit more of that metaverse. The Samsung campaign is a perfect example. They're mixing the physical with the digital. I believe we will get a bit better at that, and a bit more creative about how we do it in ways which will hopefully really inspire and create some amazing work.
I agree with that point in particular. I think we were in the entertainment category. We saw some gaming, but there was a lot of long form scripted. I kind of tossed this past year. So this is an off year, and a lot of things were done because a lot of certain things had to be done, and there were some restrictions. And what I found is a lot of clients have gotten, feels like maybe more brave, and are moving quicker. What I hope to see, at least in the entertainment category generally, is that there's going to be a desire to get back to entertainment that isn't focused on us being there for you as a brand, and being by your side through these difficult times, and that the entertainment will be, there'll certainly be still heartfelt work, but I crave some make me laugh, just be bonkers, do some things that I don't even know why you did it, but I love it. We talked about Star Park, since I'm going to bring that up. Absolutely my favorite piece of film, and in part because I was envious of it, in part because I don't know that I would ever have come up with it. But it was so well crafted, and you just want to watch it. I hope there's going to be more of the, let's just make things that people want to see and enjoy, and let's make it really well, and let's tie it into what we do as a brand. But give me something. I think the world would need some more smiles and some more work that just for the sake of entertaining, since that's the category we're in. Just entertain me. That's why I said at the beginning, how am I going to judge the work? Well, at first, if I'm in the entertainment category, if I'm not entertained, I'm probably not going to give it an award. So I'm looking forward to some big, bright, fun, silly, stupid, get us back to that kind of work.
Some entertaining work for what will hopefully potentially be the Roaring 20s. Nadia, do you have?
I was literally going to say that. Because I think that there will be a comedy and feel good resurgence, because you hope that after all the things that everyone has been through over the last year, it will be the Roaring 20s, and that people will just want to laugh. They won't want to be pulled down into the depths of despair. I think that will bring a lot of lightness, a lot of entertainment, and a lot of escapism. As you were saying earlier, it feels like, well, at least that's what I'm hoping to look forward to, is the joy of that work. And I think that Danny mentioned Star Park. I think that that piece is just something that you look at the first time and you go, oh, what did I just watch? That was amazing. It's almost like, I don't know what it is. I know what it is, but I need to watch it again. And I think that in its truth is what entertainment should be. You should want to re-experience it and feel the same emotions and joy, but be able to rediscover things and discover things within it that you hadn't seen before. And I think Star Park is so beautifully art directed and so bonkers and so fun that it just stands out and rises to the top. That full and ultimate jealousy. And I think that it's, what's interesting about juries is always that, we all want to say that or reduce advertising to an objective truth, but it's not. It's completely subjective. And I think that what's interesting about these panels and the judging is, of course, the sway that happens when someone convinces you to see what the beauty in an idea that they see, and vice versa. And I think that that's a really, really inspiring place to be.
That Star Park is that right? I only had to watch it once. I watched it twice. I still think about it. Like, I don't need to think about it. I'm thinking about it now, and I'm like, what? Why? How? Who commissioned that? It's amazing. It's beautiful. It's so well done. That's great advertising. I actually don't know what it was really advertising specifically, but I'm thinking about it days afterwards, and I'll be thinking about it next week and the week after. I'll be sitting there having a cup of tea, and I'll just think of Star Park. That's good advertising, right?
Simmering in jealousy. I'm a key theme, it seems like, on this panel is just envy.
Can we say envy, not jealousy? I don't want to do them harm. I feel. I wish I had done it.
Agree. Envy. Alexander.
Yeah, I think the reason why we all love Star Park is also because it's just so weird, and I think there needs to be more place for weird, oddball, sort of, quirky work. And I'm hoping to see more of that as we start, going back to normal. I think gaming in particular has always been about subcultures and, not everyone getting what everyone else is doing. And I think that there's something beautiful about that, and there's just, when you look at Minecraft and Roblox, and there's a million different subcultures and communities in there. And I think that we should hopefully see more work that sort of celebrates this diversity by, maybe we don't get it, but it speaks to a certain niche audience, and it's true. And it's not just, this overarching generalist message that, doesn't really touch anyone. So yeah, I'm hoping to see more weird work like Star Park as well.
More weird work. And on that note, a big thanks to our entire panel. Thank you so much for your time, for your invaluable insights, for the lols. And thanks as well to our audience for joining us in this Insights panel. We hope you enjoyed it. There's more on the website. Thank you.